You've undoubtedly heard about the plight of Kevin J. Johnson, a journalist who's facing a charge of hate speech for apparently upsetting the sensibilities of certain Muslims and or their cheerleaders. You see, some of these folks don't like it when commentators stray off the reserve of political correctness when it comes to Islam. You know, this whole idea of how we're supposed to refer to this particular faith as the religion of peace, even if the terrorism fatality statistics suggest otherwise, and how we're supposed to say peace be upon him when referencing the Prophet Muhammad, even though history tells us the reign of Muhammad was anything but peaceful. Uh-oh, I wonder if the authorities will be popping by to lock me up for uttering such heresy too. Even so, when it comes to Islam, we're all supposed to embrace that lyric from Home on the Range, you know, where seldom is heard a discouraging word. And if you say otherwise, well, the various elites will shut you up and close you down. What else can one interpret from the outrageous, politically motivated charges that have been leveled against Johnson? Here are a few points that demonstrate just how ludicrous these hate speech charges are. For starters, you simply do not have the right in this society not to be offended. Well, not yet. So sorry, snowflakes, if someone says something you don't like, you aren't entitled to punish that individual. And one of the most contentious issues regarding Johnson is his ongoing criticism of the Peel District School Board for allowing prayers in the Arabic language in gender apartheid mosques at publicly funded schools. This flies in the face of those school boards that are committed to gender equity. You know, that crazy idea that girls are equal to boys and women are equal to men. So why isn't the PDSB being hauled in front of some court or human rights commission for allowing a practice that mandates boys be separated from girls and that girls on their menstrual cycle are told they are unclean and must be out of the room? And unless a PDSB supervisor is fluent in Arabic, how do we know exactly what's being preached at these makeshift mosques? This is precisely why Johnson offered a cash reward for a videotape of one of these sermons. He wanted to get the Arabic translated into English so at least we'd have some transparency. He wanted the truth, which brings me to point number 3. It is a good idea to have transparency when it comes to Islam because, as we've witnessed on far too many occasions, what's being preached in mosques sometimes doesn't quite jive all that well with Canadian values. Barely a month goes by when it is not revealed that an imam on Canadian soil is advocating death to Jews and or infidels. Earlier this month, Sue Ann Levy of the Toronto Sun revealed that Maulana Syed Mohammed Zaki Bakri of the Pickering, Ontario-based Council of Islamic Guidance apparently said that Jews and Israelis need to be eliminated. Wow, that's some guidance. But why isn't Mr. Bakri in handcuffs and charged with hate speech, as Johnson was for saying far, far less? For what it's worth, Toronto police are currently investigating Bakri. Yeah, I guess there is some kind of nuance to the phrase, eliminate the Jews. All of which brings me to point number 4. If there's a line in the sand when it comes to free speech, it is understandably preaching harm or death to an individual or an identifiable group. Ernst Zundel, the infamous Holocaust denier, was dragged into Canadian courtrooms on numerous occasions and was eventually deported for his views on the Holocaust. He claimed the death toll was inflated. As far as I'm concerned, Zundel is a creep and his statements downplaying the Holocaust are odious. But you know, Zundel never advocated that someone should go out and harm or kill a Jew, unlike those many imams in this country who can apparently preach this despicable deed without ever having to worry about the wrath of the state. Why? Is this yet more reasonable accommodation to Islamists? You know, the whole idea of hating Jews and calling for genocide is part of their culture, and who are we in the West to say what is right and wrong? My final point, when Johnson goes on trial, I have every confidence that these trumped up charges will be dismissed. But that's not the issue, because while Johnson will be victorious in a court of law, he will be presented with a legal bill that will, in all likelihood, be in the 6 figures. This is the unspoken and unsavory strategy of the state: economic penalization. certain elites now deem certain speech to be offensive, and that means free speech, well, it isn't going to be free at all anymore. In fact, free speech is going to be very, very expensive. The message is this: hey, blabbermouth, if you want to stay out of bankruptcy, then you better fall back in line with the other sheep and take what you get. Bottom line, it was always a funny remark when the professional wrestler The Rock would tell an opponent, quote, know your role and shut your mouth, end quote. Yet, that line isn't so funny at all when it is the state making such a pronouncement regarding our cherished freedom of speech, especially when the state is doing so to satiate the sensibilities of a group of perpetually offended people who don't like it when one shines a spotlight on certain ugly truths. For the Rebel.media, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies. Like what you just saw? Then click subscribe below and never miss another Rebel video.